the majority of AI startups in America are using Chinese models because they're open source, can download, deploy locally, and customize, fine tune. Good morning, everybody. This is AI with Kyle. I'm going to be running through the latest AI news and updates. Today, we're focusing on Flux Two, the new open source image generation model, a potential competitor to Nano Banana Pro from Google. And because it's a relatively slow news day, I'm also going to talk about open source software versus closed source software, what it actually means, and also show you how you can access open source software, how you can get it installed on your own computer or elsewhere, because I've seen a lot of confusion about what this means, and lots of people just assuming closed source means paid and open source means free. It's a little more than that, so I just wanted to go into a bit more detail about why open source is important and what it means for the future of artificial intelligence and software as a whole. But we're going to do this through the lens of Flux Two, a new image generation model. So let me find here we go. So Flux Two comes from Black Forest Labs. Flux Two is here, our most capable image generation and editing model. Flux One, I'm trying to remember when it came out. It would have been 2024, I think, was the model that was used originally in Grok Imagen. Now, I don't personally use Grok that much, but the Imagen mode, the Grok image generation and video generation is very good, very good. When you generate an image on any other platform like ChatGPT or even Nano Banana Pro inside Google Gemini, it takes a long time to create that image. And it's quite frustrating, especially if you want to make lots of different variations and then choose one. What Flux is really good at is almost instantaneous generation. You will give it a prompt, a dog driving a fire engine, and it will give you 10, 20, 30 images almost in real time. You can choose which one you like. Flux One did that and was put inside of Grok initially as its image model. That was since replaced by, I think, something called Aurora. But now Flux Two is out, and I wouldn't be that surprised if we see it started to be put into models like Grok again. It looks pretty good. It just came out yesterday. The Frontier Visual Intelligence is very good. Almost as good as Nano Banana Pro. We'll look at the benchmarks in a moment. Nano Banana Pro is not cheap if you want to build it into your application. Nano Banana Pro costs about 15 cents per image. Serving lots of images to your customers. If you build an application, every single image that you are creating, and these are 2K images, will cost you 15 cents. So what's that? 6 or so of those, and you're paying $1. Very expensive for image generation. Flux 2 Pro is roughly the same quality, slightly below, according to one of the benchmarks, but it costs about 3 cents per image. It's 5 times cheaper, but almost the same quality. So this is what people are looking at. I'm not sure what this benchmark is. Oh, it's ELO. We're seeing this across all benchmarks with people saying, this is very good. This is an extremely good visual model, image generation model, and it's cheap. And it's open source, which we're going to talk about in a moment. So let's have a look at the official announcement. Flux 2 Frontier Visual Intelligence is designed for real-world creative workflows, not just demos or party tricks. It generates high-quality images while maintaining character and style consistency, super important if you want to work with this, across multiple reference images, following structured prompts, reading and writing complex text, handling layouts and logos, so you can use it for your design work. A lot of the image and video generation tools are basically party tricks or demos. Sora 2, it's fun and held attention for a week or so. I don't personally know anyone who's still using it. It's great and everyone wanted to code, but as soon as we used it once or twice, it's okay, I get it, and people dropped off. You don't hear much about Sora 2 anymore. It's a cool demo, a party trick, fun toy, but it's not ready for production. It's not necessarily something you're going to be using professionally on a day-to-day basis. Nano Banana Pro, which came out last week, feels like a shift in, oh, cool, we can make images. Now we can make images with consistent text inside, and it's going to get that text correct. So if you're doing design work, or if you're doing anything professional and you need to add text into your image, you can now do that. That is a solved problem. Whereas before, you'd have to generate the image and then redo the text, or regenerate to correct, or add it later in Photoshop. The main thing about this and Black Forest Labs and Flux 2 is that this is open source. So you can deploy it to yourself. And I'm going to be showing you how you can do that in a moment. I'm also going to talk about open source in general because it's interesting. The Chinese labs are going hard on open source. and the American labs are closing down. From Flux One to Flux Two, looks like a big jump. We're going to hop in and have a look. So I want some, if you can give me some requests, I will generate them live. What I'm going to do is I'm going to generate in the playground. So this is one way to get access. Let's see if we can get Flux Two. I haven't tried this out yet, so I'm not sure how much capacity it'll give me, or it might immediately say I need to pay. Oh no, 53 images. So if you can tell me what you want me to generate, I'll go ahead and do that. Just checking questions. Okay, let's see what they have down here. So we've got some Day of the Dead balloons. We've got a bear in some... Oh, this is good. This is like a Christmas market. Let's do a photo of a Christmas with Day of the Dead theming. Let's put it in London. A London Christmas market with Day of the Dead theming in Flux 2 Pro. Go ahead and see if that works. Okay, so I'm noticing it is generating multiple variations. This is what Flux One did, which was fantastic. Nano Banana Pro, DALL-E 3, which is in ChatGPT, and others do not do. They'll generate one image for you in their app version. If you don't like it, you need to say, okay, go ahead and change it. So it has generated 4 variations for me, which is much closer to something like Midjourney. That's pretty solid. It's been very literal about London, and it's put Big Ben here. It's actually put, I think this is meant to be the kind of Parliament offices next to it. The roofs are very similar. The layout is wrong. If this was the House of Parliament there, we would be on the bridge in this shot, but we're not going to dock it for that. In terms of the faces, can we zoom in? Zoom in is making it zoom out. The details are fine. Hands look okay. It's given me depth of field here, which is interesting. It's focused on here, so can you see these are slightly blurry. These people here look a bit robotic, but that's fine. We have Big Ben and we have the Parliament building here, but they've also put it on this side. And this looks like the Methodist Hall in the background. It's having a go at London, but we're not going to dock it for that. That's hilarious how it puts Big Ben or the Elizabeth Tower in every picture. It's pretty good. Let's see if we can do text. This has been a big issue. Nano Banana Pro is very good at is because it puts everything through a reasoning model beforehand. It can actually work out what should be in the image and your composition. Nano Banana Pro is fantastic at infographics, slides, comics. You can say make an explainer comic about artificial intelligence and it will do that. Not sure if Flux 2 will be able to, because it's not necessarily putting it through that level of thinking before generating, but let's give it a go. An infographic about making matcha latte. I'm dubious this will work, but we'll give it a shot. And again, it's pretty fast. It's not giving me the instantaneous speed of Flux One, which used to be super fast. That said, I am using it in the Pro mode. There's also Flex, which will be faster, and there's also the different aspect ratios. I can increase the batch size or decrease as well. So it's not terrible. Add matcha powder on the left. The text has gone wrong. 1, 2, whisk until frothy. Then we have another 2. Then 4. So add boiling water. It's a strange looking kettle. Pour milk into matcha. So that's gone wrong. Use high quality matcha. Water about 80 degrees. Sweeten to taste. It's not as good as Nano Banana Pro when it comes to text. Nano Banana Pro would have been able to knock this out of the park. However, Nano Banana Pro is specifically built for that kind of task because it adds it through the reasoning model. Make a matcha latte. Sift matcha, add hot water, whisk until frothy, steam or froth milk, combine. I don't actually know how you make matcha latte, but this seems right. Pour hot, not boiling water. I think they're whisking it the wrong way. It's not terrible. The graphics themselves are quite good. I like the bubbles on the matches. In terms of the infographic, it's not as good as Nano Banana Pro. I don't think it's necessarily built for that. In terms of photos, that's pretty solid. I would again say that's not the quality of Nano Banana Pro. This is not my area of expertise. I use image AIs very casually. This tool is Flux 2 from Black Forest Labs. The reason why we are covering it is because it is open source. So this is a big competitor to Nano Banana Pro because Nano Banana Pro is not cheap. It's a very good image model. It's also very expensive if you are building with it. So I wanted to show you how you can get access to this because it's not as obvious as an image model built into Gemini or ChatGPT. I was going to say an image model that's built into Claude, but Anthropic don't do images. They don't care about that. Google Flux Playground. And inside the Flux Playground, you are given some free credits. I'm sure you can pay to get some more. You can buy credits. Yep. So £1 per credit. Sorry, not pound. How much was that? 0.0 So 1 cent per credit. So you can do it through the playground to get access. You can also use the model through existing image generation software like Replicate. They have added Flux Two. Various tools will have added Flux Two by now because it's the new hotness. Multi-reference editing, complex typography, stunning detail up to 4 megapixels. This has been added into Replicate, and again, it will be added into all of the different tools that you pay for. Or, and now this is where it gets exciting, you can get the open source version. This is the repo, fully public. You can clone it onto your system, onto your own server, your VPS. It's also available on Hugging Face. So we have here Black Forest Labs, Flux Two Dev. I assume that's the one you'd use. So again, you could pull the model here, you can deploy it. So via Hugging Face, you can actually rent a server or download it onto your computer. If you know how this new model is exciting, is because immediately after Google releasing a top-of-the-range model, Black Forest Labs have released something almost as good. It's open source or costs a fraction to run on a service. That's exciting. We are continuing to see progress every single week. Again, images and AI art is not something that I really pay much attention to, but I think it's good to see there is still open source competition to the closed source models, to the private companies. What I want to talk about, because there isn't much news today after last week, which was an absolute onslaught, I want to talk about open source and closed source and what that means, because I've seen a lot of people feeling a bit afraid to ask. They see these terms and assume they should know what they are. So I wanted to do a quick primer guide on what the difference is, whether one is better or not. No, they're just different things. And knowing what this means for the future of artificial intelligence. I'm going to see if there's any questions first, and then I'll hop into that. I'm not seeing any. That is perfectly fine. How was the event yesterday? It was good. It was about which I need to try out. I'll pull it up now. This is not sponsored. This is just something I want to show you. So when you are vibe coding, especially if you have someone like me who is not a coder, somebody who's not a software engineer, there are many opportunities to add vulnerabilities accidentally into your software. Things penetrated by hackers or by accident. If your code is so soft and weak that it just opens up and shows people user details or passwords that you're not meant to, even if it's not under attack. This is a problem with vibe coding security as a whole. So there was a talk yesterday by Nitin from SemGrep, and I'm going to try this out today. Basically, SemGrep acts as a little, here we go, AppSec engineer, an app security engineer. It can do a few things. It can go through your code base and look at all your API calls and basically work out, oh, this one is vulnerable for this reason, and it will suggest fixes. So it can do an audit and fix things. This is what I'm excited about. It can act alongside you when working in something like Cursor. You'll have your AI code for you. That code will be sent via an MCP to SemGrep. SemGrep will do a quick audit on what you're about to add to your code, flag any potential issues, any conflicts with previous bits of code, any security loopholes that you're going to be opening up for yourself, and fix it for you. That's actually free. I was sitting at this talk yesterday and thinking, oh, this sounds great, but this sounds like an enterprise level, very expensive thing. But no, if you are using it individually, there's a community edition, the most popular open source SaaS engine on GitHub. So it's free to use their kind of basic version. So later today, I'm going to set this up for myself, add the MCP server to Cursor and give it a go, because I'm sure the things that I have been building over the last 6 months are absolutely full of holes, because I'm not a coder. I'm not a software engineer. I'm excited to try it out. If you are not a coder, if you don't know what any of these things are, if you don't know what AppSec is, you'd be like, what is this? Do I need this? But I watched the demonstration yesterday about how it's set up and how it can be used by coders. And so, oh, okay, that's quite easy. So I'm going to set up an MCP server, give it a go, see how that is. If useful, I'll shoot another video about it and show people how to integrate it into their workflow as well. Again, this is not sponsored. I just happened to go to an event that they were doing yesterday and thought it was pretty cool. What's different to CodeRabbit? Not sure. I do know CodeRabbit. I have not tried CodeRabbit. Cut code review times and bugs in half instantly. Does CodeRabbit have an MCP? I think it does. Yes, it does. I don't know the difference. But if you use CodeRabbit, maybe look at SemGrep and see if it's any different, any better. Free is also nice. We like free. Right, I'm going to hop over to open source versus closed source. We just looked at Flux Two. an open source image generation artificial intelligence, and we're comparing it to something like Nano Banana Pro, which is closed source. You cannot get the code, you cannot access the repo and see what is going on under the hood, and they certainly don't give you like the open weights so that you can rebuild Nano Banana Pro yourself. All of that sits on Google servers. You access it via your requests, and then it will send back its results, but they're not giving you the inner workings of Nano Banana Pro. Flux 2 is open source. Broadly, the code itself is available. We can see the Inference repo for Flux One. Oh, this is the Flux One model. Let's see if we can find Flux 2. It sits inside GitHub. I want to see Flux 2. There we go. So this means I can come onto GitHub and clone it onto my local computer. This way I can actually download the whole thing. I'm interested to see how big it is. Oh, this is the model, so we'd have to get the parameters. That was only 30 megabytes. So I could now deploy this on my own device, if my own device is beefy enough, or on a server I rent. That's going to be more realistic, which has access to things like GPUs, which can then run the model for me. And this is available on a non-commercial license. It is open source, but non-commercial. There are other licenses like VS Code, a development environment created by Microsoft. They've opened up the repo and allow people to use it under the MIT license. And the MIT license is pretty wide, allowing people to make a copy of the software, deal in the software without restriction, including use, copy, modify, merge, publish, distribute, sublicense, and sell copies of the software. This allows you to create a fork of VS Code, edit it, and then sell whatever it is you've built. So famously, there is a very famous fork or version of VS Code called Cursor. Now worth, what's Cursor's valuation? Cursor's valuation is $30 billion. The initial version of Cursor was basically VS Code with ChatGPT or other models slapped onto the side. And it's pretty similar to when you use something like Perplexity's AI browser or even ChatGPT's AI browsers. Basically a version of Chromium with an AI interface. They're built off existing open source repos. All AI browsers are built off Chromium, including Atlas, the ChatGPT one. VS Code has been forked into Cursor. People have made multi-billion dollar companies. Cursor, in their defense, have gone from basically taking a public version of VS Code, slapping on AI. They have developed their own models called Composer, which gives them a moat. Viewer can do something similar. Clone VS Code onto your computer, customize it, change it, and you can add functionality, especially because we can now vibe code. So you could build your own Cursor. I know people who have built their own AI apps, their own AI vibe coding apps. They've vibe coded their own vibe coding apps. It gets complicated. But that is doable because of the open source movement. This is an old book, but I think it's a useful kind of metaphor, the metaphor of the Cathedral and the Bazaar. This is by Eric Raymond, big in the Linux movement. So the central thesis here is the software essay contrasts two different development methods. So the Cathedral model, in which the source code is available with each software release, but code developed between releases is restricted to an exclusive group of developers. The Bazaar method, in which the code is developed over the internet in view of the public. The method is sometimes posited as one of the main benefits of open source, is that everybody can contribute, everyone can see what is happening, and it allows a community to develop open source models together with feedback and accountability. The community needs to be managed, and we've seen recently some communities explode because as soon as you introduce people, you introduce potential problems as well. But why this is important nowadays, primarily because the Chinese models are, for the most part, open source. So something like DeepSeek v3, we do not have DeepSeek v4 yet, but if we go to DeepSeek AI, these are open source and open weights versions of their models. So we can get access to them, we can deploy our own models. Because of this, there was some research recently that found the majority of AI startups in America are using Chinese models because they're open source, can download and deploy locally and customize, fine tune. If you are using a closed source model from OpenAI, from Anthropic, from Google, you do not have control over that model. You are basically renting usage via the API and you're sending requests back and forward, but you don't get to control the actual model itself. So we are seeing a split between closed and open source software development. But in this case, the Chinese are spearheading the open source, whereas the American companies tend to be closing. The exception to that was Meta. So Meta were releasing lots of open source models, the Llama models. They recently, a couple of months ago, indicated that they were no longer interested in doing that. They haven't released any local models since then. Mark Zuckerberg said that is not something we will be pursuing. This has huge impacts because China now owns the open source space. Having access to the repo, being able to fine tune it, being able to deploy it locally, being able to create your own version of it is incredibly powerful. And that is not something that most of the American companies are interested in. There is GPT OSS, so they released an open source ChatGPT. It's not very good, and there is no reason to use it when you have access to much better Chinese models. If you'd want a local model, if you want to do it on your telephone, I recommend something called Locally AI. This is only on the App Store for now. There is, I've forgotten the name of it. There is a Android one called Small Chat. That's it. I don't have Android, so somebody would have to confirm to this. I believe this is in the Play Store though, so you can grab a copy. This was 6 months ago, so it should still be there. Let's see if I can open it up. There we go. Small Chat by Panchal. 2 stars. I'm not recommending this, never used it, but have a look around. There should be Google Play versions as well. It works really well on the iPhone. And what you do is you download this application. The application is free. I don't think it even needs a sign up. Yeah, offline, private and secure. And then once you're in, it's going to say, all right, what model do you want to use? You would download a local model onto your telephone. So this means if you're worried about, oh, I don't want to send information to China, blah, blah, the model sits on your telephone. It's not connected to DeepSeek servers. It's not connected to Qwen servers. It is local on your telephone, on your device. You get an option between different models to put onto your phone. It won't be as fast and it won't be as good as models you are using that you pay for via Claude, via ChatGPT, but it will still be pretty good and it will be private, which if that is important to you, this is how you do it. For Mac, I recommend LM Studio. Once you opened it, it looks like this. I can't share it because I can only share Chrome on this screen. You can choose your model, install a model. It would download the files from somewhere like Hugging Face, so DeepSeek, for example, R1. It would download this model and deploy it on your device. That's how you do it. LM Studio, or you can go to Hugging Face and deploy it via here. Local apps, here we go. They've got VLLM and TGI. I know VLLM, but you can try them all. They're mainly free. LM Studio is free. I think VLLM is free as well. And that will get it running on your computer. Now, what you'll be running is inference. So you are not training a model, just downloading a copy. You're downloading all the parameters and code behind the model and then running it on your computer. So it will work. It won't be very fast and it won't necessarily be as high quality as private models, but it will be fine again. This is very different to training your own model. If you want to train from scratch, realistically, you need hardware. So PewDiePie recently has been doing this, the YouTuber. His computer, I think, is about $20,000, $30,000 worth of graphics cards, and it's still taking him months to train up a model. So realistically, that is becoming less doable by an individual. It's now costing thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions to train your own model, but you can download an existing model from Hugging Face and run it locally. Running a model, inference, is doable. Training a model is not, generally. People who say, oh, I train my own models, absolutely. It just won't be the quality of Anthropic, who spend hundreds of millions training a model, or ChatGPT, hundreds of millions training a model. Now out of reach for us as individuals, sadly. I'm going to hop over to questions. Ask Nano Banana Pro to create a slide of KPIs. The quality severely reduces after a few changes. The fact that it can deal with changes at all is great, because previous Nano Banana could not. You give it a change and it would be like, sure. What I would say is, if it's something complicated and it's going to require fiddling around and making sure it's perfect, give it as much detail up front as possible. It has a thinking model, so it will try to think through as much as possible. But if you can provide more guidelines, more specifics about how you want it to look, what information you want included, it should get it right the first time. Then you're not going to end up with that deterioration by having to prompt it again and again. How do I keep the quality high enough to present? I would just try that. So providing as much information up front, so you are limiting the number of revisions required. The alternative is downloading the image and doing manual edits. Not ideal, but that is something that can be done. How can we have a training model? Can the Chinese government give it to us? You don't have to go to the Chinese government. So if you want DeepSeek R1, it is right here, and you can download it or deploy it. Download button, clone the repository here. But you don't have to go to the Chinese government because the Chinese labs publish this stuff. For people who are afraid of information going to the Chinese government, that's not what happens because you are installing it on a local device. It is not sending information back and forward. So it's actually, in a weird way, it's safer than when we use something like OpenAI, because when we use ChatGPT, we are sending information back and forward to their servers, and we seem to be okay with that. Whereas if you get a Chinese model and you download their parameters, you download the model itself, and you stick it on your local computer, that is no longer connecting to the people who created that model. And if you really want, you can block off the internet access. You can run it on a computer that has no internet access, and it will still work if you want that security. Why can't we get private models? Why can't we build our own models? You can. You just need a lot of GPUs. You can rent GPUs. Buying GPUs is probably silly. You can rent an NVIDIA H200 for $3 an hour. Realistically, you'd have to rent a block of them, so it's going to cost you more than that. But one H200 is $3 per hour. You could train on these machines. Let's go back to that one that had clear pricing at the beginning. You can 100% do it. It's just going to cost a lot of money. You can buy your own GPUs, but that's very expensive, or you can rent them. So here we go. So 8 H200s will cost you $17 per hour, and you might be doing your training run for a few weeks. Obviously, that's going to start adding up over time. And at the end of that, the model you train will not be as good as Claude Opus 4.5 or ChatGPT 5.1, because they have thousands of H200s or H100s running in giant pods using NVLink. From what they come out with at the end of their training is vastly superior to what we can do. We can do it as a hobby because it's fun and interesting to see how these things work and to understand how that would scale up to a production-ready frontier model. We can also do it if we want to train something specifically for our work or for us. Let's say your business has a lot of data, you might train a local model. That's a business decision, whether it's worthwhile compared to using a top-range model which can work with your data. That's a big question. The problem with training your models, though, is that the frontier labs keep coming out with better models every month or so. So anything that we train today might cost us $10,000, $100,000 to train and then be defunct because everything else has moved on so quickly in the last 6 months or so. But that's a business decision. If you want to train a local model that can be trained, is it really out of reach? No, not at all. It's expensive and not very efficient, but you can do it. Just be ready to spend some money. And you can do it through vast AI and various different companies where you rent rather than buying. Because if you wanted to buy an H200, oh, they are for sale. I'm surprised they're not out of stock. So this is one H200 is £30,000. So if you wanted to get 8 H200s, you're going to need a small mortgage for that. And then having 8 of these is still tiny compared to, let's see, the Colossus data center. How many H200s? Look at me asking Google instead of asking ChatGPT. Colossus has 50,000 H200s. So 50,000 times 30,000. I can't work out that number. 15 billion in GPUs. This is why it's hard to compete. A lot of money. You can buy one, but what you can build with it is not going to compete with anything that's out on the market. Plus, it is 30 grand, which is not cheap. That was what I wanted to talk about today. Not a huge amount of news compared to last week, which was an inundation of AI news. Is quite nice. I think we're in the post-Thanksgiving period where there's a bit of a lull, and then I imagine we're going to be seeing more in December. We'll probably have the 12 days of shipmas that OpenAI did last week, where they had 12 days of giving us new models. We'll probably have something similar to that again. Europe hasn't got a chance against the Chinese. No, they don't. Europe is basically out of the race when it comes to artificial intelligence. The UK does produce a lot of good researchers, produce DeepMind, produce Demisa Sabis, people like that, like very high-end thinkers come through our universities. They are poached by American labs because the American labs pay 100 times more what they'd get paid working for a British company. No blame on them at all. It's understandable. But it means the talent basically goes to America. And things like DeepMind. So DeepMind was a UK company, but it's purchased in 2014 for $400 million, which at the time people were like, oh my God, that is so much money. And now is like pocket change when it comes to artificial intelligence. So Google realized early on, there's a lot of potential here. We're going to scoop up Mind. We're going to scoop up people like Demis Hassabis. Good purchase for only 400 million, which I think might go down as one of the best acquisitions in history, because DeepMind has now allowed them to forge ahead with artificial intelligence. So that is a UK-based lab, UK-based talent, but got gobbled up about 11 years ago by Google. So no, Europe it cannot compete with China and America. The amount of investment that's going in, you keep seeing these numbers coming from the EU. Oh, we're investing 100 million into such and such. There's no point. It's just wasted money at this point. You're so far behind that you need to outspend to catch up, but instead they are underspending whilst being behind. So it's a bit like what we were just talking about with, oh, can you train your own model at home? You can buy an NVIDIA H200 for £28,000. You need a whole bunch of them. XAI, for example, have 50,000 of these working in tandem with each other. But yeah, sure, you can buy one and set it up at home. But the model that you produce from this is not going to be competitive because you are not putting in enough investment to compete with the big boys. What the EU and the UK putting in, they're not even putting up the table stakes to compete with China and America. This is a two-horse race, 100%. It saddens me when Europe and the UK say, we're going to build this data center and it's going to be ready in 3 years' time and it's going to have this number of GPUs. And it's okay, too slow, not enough, too late. It's just a waste of money. It's not going to allow them to catch up. Yeah, anyway, don't get me started on that again. I pray every day to have one of these, an H200. Unfortunately, one's not enough anymore. If you want to create an AI model or app that addresses a consumer issue, where should you start? If you want to create an AI model, then you might want to train from scratch. More likely, you would get something like DeepSeek, which I just showed you. You'd get a version of DeepSeek and fine-tune it. You'd do additional layers of training on top of an existing model. So you don't do it from scratch because that's wasteful. You look into things like RAG, augmented generation, giving a model a database and saying, hey, only pay attention to information in this database. You can do things like that with an existing model, and that allows you to create an AI that is your own. It's more specific, but it's built off the back. 80% of the work, 90% of the work is done by the lab who gives you the open source model, and then you do the final 10%. However, you said, how do I build an AI or an app? These are different levels. You don't need to build your own AI to build your own app. Very separate things. If you want to build an app, you can just use an API. You can directly connect to ChatGPT. You can directly connect to Anthropic. Every time one of your users uses the AI inside your application, that sends a message to ChatGPT. ChatGPT processes the information and sends back what needs to be presented to the user. Every time you do that, you pay $0.001. It's very cheap. So for that, you'd go to platform.openai.usage. You can access all the models, have a dashboard with your usage, and here you create API keys. Your API key is what your software uses to talk to OpenAI and say, I've got a user request. The user is saying such is preloaded. Do some processing for me, and then ChatGPT will say, cool, I'll do that, and then send back some result. You pay like a cent, and that is served up in your application. So if you are building an app, that is very different to building your own model. So and a lot easier. If you have no idea where to start with something like Lovable has built-in AI, so it would do all the API stuff for you. You don't need to connect to ChatGPT. Platform.openai.com will do that for you. If you're more confident with code, check out Cursor. With Cursor, you will need to come onto this website, platform.openai.com. You will need to generate an API key. You need to take that back to Cursor and add it to your environment variables. Again, this is a bit more technical, but that is how you set up an AI app. Can you use AI to create an agent that you market? Yeah, for sure. There's using AI to make an AI app. It's a bit like Squarespace. Squarespace is a website that lets you make websites. There are AIs that help you make AIs. Lovable, Replit, Base 44, Bolt. These are starter ones. They are AI applications that help you make AI applications like Squarespace, but for AI. If you want to make agents specifically, start with NA10 so you can learn about workflows and agents. Because when you're making an agent, it's really about grasping what processes you want it to complete. The actual making of the agent is quite easy. It's the embedding all of the logic and rules for it to produce good work. That's complicated. That's about thinking what the business is, thinking what's actually useful inside of that workflow. So NA10 is a good way to start doing that because it's like a visual drag and drop interface. And then from there, you can move on to crafting agents from scratch. If you want to keep a version of 4.0, so OpenAI do not release their weights. So what you need, let's check out OpenAI's GitHub. I do have one. They've got repositories. They don't release their weights and biases because they are not open source. So 4.0 is not open source. They have an open source model called OSS. They do not have a version of 4.0 that is open source to the public. You'd need to download the weights and biases and deploy it on a local machine. That is not something that they've released. And unfortunately, there's no way to reverse engineer that out of using the model. If that was something that was important, I would go and lobby them and say, hey, instead of deprecating it, instead of deprecating the API and putting the app version into legacy, which I think is a fair request because it's a model that they are saying, we're not going to support it, we're not going to use it moving forward. So they could be lobbied to release it. They might not want to because it allows competitors to reverse engineer it and play catch up. Arguably, it's an older model, doesn't matter. But so far, they have not released many open source models. The only one they have is GPT OSS, which you can get, but it is not like 4.0, unfortunately. Oh, there we go. It's on Hugging Face. There we go. So that is downloadable. I'm using Cursor for business requirements creation too. It's like a Swiss Army knife. Yes. So I use it for crafting course material. So I use it as a writing assistant as well. So because it allows me to structure larger projects and access Claude code and Claude, etc., I do larger projects inside of Cursor, even if they are not code-based projects. And I know there's a guy called Jeremy Nguyen, Nguyen, Vietnamese, who I know he writes using Cursor. So he does like creative writing using inside of the Cursor interface because it allows him to structure absolutely everything, which I think is such a cool usage. How do you use Claude code in Cursor? Just open up the terminal and run it at the bottom of Cursor. Pull up a terminal. So for me, now that I have Claude code installed, I just type Claude and it opens up Claude code. But what you need to do the first time, open up the terminal in Cursor, use the npm install -g Anthropic AI Claude code. It might need to install Node.js in your project. That's fine. It will work. This will install it into your project and allow you access via the terminal inside of Cursor. It's all connected to your project files. Very cool. I got that off Diona, an engineer at Netflix. She's become my go-to contact. She produces stuff on Diona Hodges on TikTok. She really knows what she's talking about. And she's my go-to anytime I don't know how this works. I'll send her a message. She's very helpful and showed me how to set it up in Cursor. Now I have maybe 3 or 4 different Claude codes inside of Cursor, all off doing its own thing. Very cool. I've just brought her up on screen. Diona Hodges. Make sure you're following her. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to hop off. Not much news today, but we looked at Flux 2 and how you would run models locally, whether or not you should train your own models, probably not. You're looking at the future of AI, whether open source or closed source. It's going to be both. People like to say that it is one or the other. That is not true. So hopefully this has been a useful. I recommend running your own models just to try it out. If you have a telephone, you can literally do it now with locally AI. Just grab it on your phone, download a model and try it out. Or on a Mac, use LM Studio or VLLM. There's probably a PC version or equivalents. Hugging Face is your go-to for actually getting the models, for getting the parameters and getting them deployed onto your computer or your telephone as well. So go and play around with that. I think it's a fun little side project just to see how it works. Layla is really good. Follow her. Shout out to Diona, who is my go-to help. I need technical support. She's lovely, lovely. Why not fine tune? Oh yeah, you can absolutely fine tune. We talked about that briefly, but you might not want to train a model from scratch just because of the computational requirements. But fine tuning, RAG, etc. Absolutely, those are very useful. Together, Mike is saying this is useful for fine tuning, accelerate training, fine tuning, and inference. So they've got, okay, so you can rent GPUs here as well. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Make sure you are subscribed to the newsletter. The newsletter comes out every day and it has a written summary of what we've just covered. This is yesterday's, for example, talking about GPUs versus TPUs and so on, etc. So, yeah, that's all in the newsletter. I will give you the resources for deploying your own local LLM in newsletter, so it'll be a bit more of a guide than it usually is. So hopefully that's going to be handy. Also, make sure you are subscribed on YouTube. We are going for 10,000 subscribers. We are at 9,670, so pretty close. Might make it next week. So if you're not, make sure you subscribe. That really helps me to continue to do these. Thank you so much, and I will see you. Cheers.